Because I wanted to do a Mary James themed covers video, but I didn't have several of her most iconic covers, we are looking at the 2005 Spider-Man Marvel Handybook. This is a follow-up to the 2004 one we looked at a few weeks ago. It contains profiles for a lot of the characters who you might have thought were missing from that. Still no Sybil Savile. Don't know why. This one even has a John Rain cover. And I don't like John Rain either, but he is better than Sally LaRue. John Rain is someone I think could be told to fix his biggest problem, the foreheads. And maybe he could. I was going to say that, unlike last time, all the characters on the cover do have a profile, but there is someone behind J.K. Jonah Jameson's who most certainly does not. I have a few guesses who it might be, but let me know in the comments if you clock it before I get to them. We have more than one writer for this one, but I straight away need to talk about the elephant in the room. This is worse than you think. This isn't Spider-Man with Emma Stone. No, this is Spider-Man with Emma Stone's illegitimate daughter. In the story where Peter Parker considers running away to Paris to be with Emma Stone's illegitimate daughter. A story which is written by a woman who had never written comics before, but a young woman who was a writing student of then Spider-Man writer JMS Michael JMS Straczynski. Around 2004-2005, he left his wife to be with this much younger woman that was studying under him. Her only credits in comics are writing stuff because of or in relation to him. This story is... Not many people know about this story. Sins Remembered, the sequel to Sins Past. We will come to the Sins Past shit. But Sins Remembered, it was in Spectator Spider-Man, so less people read it. It's deplorable. I suppose they do say, write about what you know, and what this person knows is a married man running away to be with a woman so much younger that it long ago left the borders of appropriate. They should have just used the picture on the left of Spider-Man and Mary James, the Gary Franklin one. That would have been better for here. Our first profile is for Spider-Man supporting character Elizabeth Banks. Although the one in the MCU, the Australian girl, she's okay. She is the most likeable person in those dreadful MCU Spider-Man movies. But Elizabeth Banks in her prime, in a bad wig to boot. It kinda annoys me that they have had this character in 2 cinematic adaptations of Spider-Man, and in neither of them has she been in a relationship with Peter Parker at any point. You don't even need to have it in the movie. Just have her be his ex from before the movies. Like, her past history with Peter Parker is the reason she is an important character. If she had never dated Peter Parker, we wouldn't be keeping track of her in the comics, and she would not have anywhere near a 2-page profile. Kerry Man. I think I have mentioned Kerry Man in every video this week, and that is because Kerry Man is in my top 10 Spider-Man villains. He was also my first guess as to who that character on the cover might be, but it's definitely not. This profile covers all 3 iterations of Kerry Man. This is because Gary Conman retconned the original Kerry man into not being Spider-Man's biology professor back from the grave. And so we wound up with 3 Kerry men, because then in the 90s, during the Clone Saga, we went back and re-retconned all the clone stuff. Original Handybook artwork over here. We have quite a lot of that in this volume. Chameleon. One of the characters I said was missing last time. Now this is actually, again, a perfect image selection. And you will be thinking to yourself that I am saying that because it is from the hard Handybooks. But it's not. It just happens to be an amazing bit of art pulled from an issue that looks like it could have been from the hard Handybooks. In the original series, Chameleon didn't have a profile. He was considered too minor. In the deluxe edition, they plain forgot to give him a profile, and Marky Mark admits that in one of the intro blurbs. Then, in the 1989 one, the update, they have him, but it is Todd McFarlane doing the art, and the entire profile is filled with incorrect information. I was going to try and source this picture. My gut said it was Gary Conman, Spectator Spider-Man, surely. But I've actually looked through all of the issues Chameleon is in, and I didn't find this. Chameleon was always more in Spider-Man's web than Spectator. I looked at the 7 or 8 Spectator issues that he was in, and this wasn't in any of them. My opinion now is that it possibly was the artwork done for his profile in the deluxe edition that never saw print. There's also the possibility that the art credit is incorrect. I will say, since we covered the big ones in the 2004 Handybook, this Handybook has a lot more of the Spider-Man villains I love. Jessica DeWolf. It is bonkers that they gave her profile, and we still don't get around to Larry Osborn. I would assume Larry Osborn is being dropped because he has, or had, been dead since 1993. But Jessica DeWolf had been dead since 1985. Here is one of my favourite oddball villains, Double Gagger. I had his toy as a kid. His arms fell off. And nowadays I have his mini-mate, and his arms fall off too. Double Gagger was from Affinity Wars. Alan Watson's evil counterpart, Alan Moriarty, created distorted slaves that correlated to the Marvel heroes. Spider-Man's one and Daredevil's one, those two stuck around after the crossover was over. Double Gagger has a decent amount of appearances, even with him having no character at all. The art chosen here isn't a great one. We don't get a good look at him really. Oh, here's a good example of why this isn't a great picture. If you used this as a reference, you wouldn't know that his feet are like talons. Human Fly. This one takes the cake for being near the top of my list of favourite Spider-Man villains. He eats from bins and fires lasers out of his bum. What more do you want? I wish they had used his art from the deluxe edition though. This is from the cover to Amazing Spider-Man 193, and it's not a good picture. Oh, I should say, I need to start saying this. When I say the image isn't good, I mean as a Handybook picture. This is a bad Handybook picture because he isn't in a neutral pose. He's actually opposite something that is a good Handybook picture. This comes from the deluxe edition, Mr. Big. This is a good image to show a character. No part of him is obscured. He is in a pose that is ideal for reference. This is another bad one. This is an example of a massive problem. Angles. Sourcing art from comics like they often have to do, you get characters at angles like this. And that is terrible for someone looking to these as a resource. Plus his arm is cropped out. Another big problem with these 2000s era Handybooks. This character, he was one of the then recent bad guys, and he had a few appearances. He appeared outside of his first story. He was originally presented as a villain who could copy powers, but then they revealed it was some silly persuasion power, and he persuades people he has these powers. If Elizabeth Banks had never dated Peter Parker in the comics, this is the sort of profile she would get. 1 page. I was worried that I had too much to say about some of these, but profiles for characters like this make it easier. Randy Savage as Bonesaw McGraw. Hydro, the man with hydraulic arms. Now, I would have, personally, merged the Jackass and Kerryman profiles a bit, but that's me. The Jackass has 2 pages because he was heavily retconned twice over, and the first paragraph of his profile was completely new information to me. He has this ongoing war with the High Digivolutionary, and I have never heard of that ever. I would assume it is from the Clone Saga after I bailed, and it was part of trying to tidy up all the Gary Conman retconning. We will come back to this. Another slice of OG Handybook artwork, J.K. Jonah James Simmons Jr. in his Jupiter Man outfit. Nobody has validated or denied my likely incorrect memory that he was ever called Jupiter Man, and there's a smaller picture of him as Man Wolf. Here is his dad, J.K. Jonah James Simmons. Not my tempo, that is what he says in the Spider-Man films. Hey, it's not my tempo. Are you Russian or are you Dragon? Classic J.K. Jonah James Simmons. Kanye, he has a terrible profile. It doesn't mention some very important things or characters. It also gets a character's name wrong. It needed to be longer, I think. The art choice isn't too bad. Bill son of a bitch inks are. But then, even something that could work as a picture is cropped like this. Anyone seen this movie yet? Madam Web? Has anyone seen it? Mr. Mind. They had done a topical revamp of him, where he was an alcoholic, disabled, homeless man who dies in an alleyway, beaten to death by gangbangers. Always confused me when people would say gangbangers, because I thought it meant like gang rape. I thought it meant gang rapists. And on TV shows, characters would casually be saying, a couple of gangbangers roughed me up last night. And it is a very different show when you think they have been sodomised off screen. Jared Leto. I think this bad art comes from the cover to one of those issues I got recently from The Vague Age of Spider-Man. I don't know, I think I've still got that one lying around somewhere. There we go, Spider-Man issue 77. Should I be pointing out where all the art comes from? Nah, there'll be somewhere I just don't know, or I couldn't possibly know. Mysterium. We have a profile for Mysterium. We were still combining profiles. We have a profile for the first and second Mysterium AR. This profile picture, I am in two frames of mind about. On one hand, it is a decent picture for a profile, but on the other, she is holding a baby. Little baby Harvey Osborn. Lee Harvey Osborn. We have another character coming from the then current story arcs. This was a very, very, very sexy woman in a very, very, very bad story. She was the standout. She was sexy as fuck. So Dan Slott brought her back a few years later and made her unsexy. Another embarrassing profile. This is too short. That's the problem. Ben really needed 2 pages, without a doubt. They don't even show him in his Spider-Man costume. And like Kanye, they end up having to skip massive chunks of his history. When Robbie Robertson gets 2 full pages, but what was once the main Spider-Man for several years gets 1, it really displays preference towards certain material. And if we are allowed bias like that, then why can't me Curryman profile neglect to mention the Gary Conman retcons? This is a guy named Joe, cropped. Spider-Man update. The main update is that he now has organic webbing. Remember that? Remember when that was a thing? Organic webbing. Someone asked recently if I prefer him having web shooters or organic webbing, and it's not even a question anymore. The organic webbing debate died about 11 years ago. They also asked if I prefer big-eyed Spidey or small-eyed Spidey, and I didn't answer because I thought there might be a video in that one day. My answer to that question is very, very long. The Spider-Mobile. You can probably guess my response to the Spider-Mobile is that I love it. Goofy shit. It is completely daft. I love it. Spider Slayers. They made a mini-mate of this one, but I didn't get it. This would have been my guess for what that character on the cover is meant to be, but none of the ones depicted quite look like it. At the same time though, they don't show Smythe the way he looked when he became the ultimate Spider Slayer, the design we all know from the cartoon. The Stink returns. I think this is going to be the profile I spend the longest time on. It's the twins. I ate the Peter Parker sells his marriage to Satan thing, but this was equally as bad. The difference is I can laugh about this. I find this a sensational display of incompetence, whereas the marriage thing was a display of malice. An editorial regime that is in love with Spider-Man's dead girlfriend, Emma Stone. A group of men who read comics in the 70s and then grew out of them and then got jobs in the industry. They can't let Emma Stone go. They hate Mary James because Mary James isn't their idea of Spider-Man's love interest or their idea of a good woman. Emma Stone is. So even with the horrendous Emma Stone agenda with all Spider-Man comics, every person involved with editorial allowed this storyline to go to print. We find out that Emma Stone, while dating Peter Parker, had an affair with Norman Osborn. Oh, by the way, JMS, Michael JMS Straczynski, wrote that too. An older man having an affair with a younger girl. Emma Stone became pregnant with Norman Osborn's illegitimate children. We never saw any of this in the Silver or Bronze Age comics. It was a retcon. It all happened in secret, and only Mary James knew, and she didn't tell Peter because they had to get that little dig at Mary James in. They still had to make Mary James complicit in one of the most despicable retcons in the history of everything. And keep in mind, these writers and editors are supposedly in love with Emma Stone, or the idea of Emma Stone, and they want to protect her, and they hate that she was ever killed off, and they hate Mary James for not being Emma Stone, and they let this story happen. To me, it shows that editors at Marvel, it is a title, it's not a job they often do. They stamp scripts, they don't read them properly. So then, the story is that the twins returned, and now they wanted to murder Peter Parker for killing their mom. And this is a bad picture of them because they only wore these stealth disguises in their first appearance to conceal their identities. And by this point, the boy had become the Grey Gobbler. And as mentioned before, Spider-Man was considering abandoning his wife and running off to France with Emma Stone's daughter. Also, it is a shared profile for two people. No one really touched them again. The story was despised by everyone. The boy, he became American Son for a short while. That was it. That was the last time anyone used them. They were the twins. They were retconned away by Nickelback Spencer. But then he got fired in the middle of trying to retcon the deal with Satan. Same writer who retconned Captain America into being a Nazi all along. Mental Storm. Possibly also the person on the cover. They just haven't provided any image of him looking like he does on the cover. And I can't find any image of him looking like he does on the cover. Another villain I like, for the record. He was a bad guy in one issue of that Spiky Ball series. He was a bad guy in one of the issues. Crash Thompson, Sailor Tim art, and then quite a bad picture that is meant to show Crash Thompson when he had, I want to say, brain damage. It's a bad picture because he's not even framed in the centre of it. He's in the corner. It's a picture of someone pushing him in a wheelchair. It's not a picture of Crash Thompson. Toxic. We were still introducing symbiote offsprings well into the new millennium. Toxic, I read both his two miniseries, and then he never appeared again. He got killed off panel like 10 years later. Worthwhile character, wasn't he? Skin Deep. This is another one from JMS, Michael JMS Straczynski. A kid that Peter Parker bullied in high school. Bleh. Don't like that. At least he's not having sex with some 20 to 30 years younger than him, which would be a baby or a fetus. As I have been looking at these, I said these are good. These index sections at the back. And this time, we have a good example of why. I have been able to use this to identify the comic where all that nonsense lore about the Jackass and iDigivolutionary, I know what comic that is from. I have now added that issue to my wish list. What the fuck was that? Here is the back. I haven't skipped anything. That is the reason I show these. To prove to you that I haven't skipped anything. Of course, one day, there might be one where it lists a character on the back that they took out last minute, and I will look like I skipped something. Spider-Man is unique in that he pretty consistently receives Handybooks in the 2000s. He has another one in 2007. I suppose that is the next one we will look at. He has one in 2008, which I don't have because it was all Dan Slott era shit. But we do build up quite a volume of Spider-Man characters. And then you have gaps like Larry Osborne or Sybil Saville, both of which I assume are covered in the 2006 A to Z series rather than in a Spider-Man one. Who is your favourite character in this other than Spider-Man? Who is your favourite character who gets a profile in this other than J.K. Jonah Jameson's too? Who is your favourite character except for those two that would obviously be your favourites? Mine are the twins. The twins are great characters, and the readership were completely wrong to reject them. They are top 5 Spider-Man characters easily. No, they were shit. I like Curry Man, Human Fly, and Chameleon. And I would most like to have sex with the sexy one. And I give this 7 thumbs up.